What's up, CS Youth? Welcome back to another edition of Bible Stories with Ben. That's me, Ben. And today we're continuing the story of Moses that we started last week. We kind of looked at him being born, growing up for a minute. Today we're looking at the second half of his life, and this is actually going to span a lot of chapters. We're going to be talking about Exodus 3 through 14 in just a few minutes. So definitely, I'm going to be skipping over a lot of detail, so I highly encourage you read these things at home as well. You know what I mean? I'm here to summarize and make these stories come to life a little bit, but read these at home. Make sure that you know all of these details. I want that for you. So, but let's get right into it. So last time we saw Moses, he had run away from Egypt. This time, where we're picking up is many years later. Moses has gotten married to Zipporah. His wife's name. He has a couple kids. He's really settled down, and he's a shepherd now. He's tending to a flock of sheep. And one day he's out in the desert with all of his sheepies, and off in the distance, kind of out the corner of his eye, he sees a really weird thing. He sees a bush on fire. And as he's looking over there at that bush, he notices it's not burning up. The fire's not spreading. And it's just kind of an ongoing fire. It's been going a while. So he starts walking toward the burning bush. And as he's approaching it, a voice calls out to him from inside the burning bush. Moses! Moses! Probably sounded exactly like that. And it tells him, you are walking on holy ground. Take off your sandals. So Moses, he's terrified, right? A bush is talking to him. So he throws off his sandals. He walks toward the bush. Turns out this voice is God himself speaking to Moses, and has just chosen to do it in this crazy, awesome, miraculous way. Moses says, who are you? And the bush says, I am that I am. Super famous line from God there. God has the best lines in storytelling history. God tells Moses, hey, I need you to go save the Israelites. I need you to go free my people from slavery. You're the best guy to do it. You know Egypt super well. You're going to be a great leader, all this stuff. And Moses does not want to, okay? Moses is super hesitant. Moses has bad self-esteem issues, thinks he's terrible at talking. And God convinces him eventually to go do it because he shows him these miracles that he can perform in front of the Pharaoh, like throwing his rod on the ground and it turns into a snake, or putting his hand in his coat and taking it out and it's like a leprous hand. So Moses finally gets convinced. He goes down to Egypt. He meets up with his new sidekick, his brother Aaron. And Aaron is going to help him with all this stuff. Aaron is a really fluent speaker. So one of God's ways to convince Moses of doing this whole thing is Aaron is a great speaker. So I'm going to do a bunch of my talking through Aaron. So the two of them, they go before Pharaoh and they show him these miraculous signs that God told them to. And Pharaoh just does not budge. He's like, I'm not going to let you free the slaves. We need them for the crops and stuff. Get out. So Moses prays to God again, and Pharaoh actually makes the work on the slaves even harder. He treats them even worse because Moses and Aaron even ask. So even the slaves are mad at Moses. Moses is super mad at God. God decides, I'm going to bring plagues on Egypt to convince Pharaoh to let my people go, because it's come to this. So Moses goes back before Pharaoh and he tells him about these plagues. And one by one, each of these plagues happens, and they're super bad. They're getting worse all the time. There's a plague of flies, where every house is covered in swarms of flies, so much so that you couldn't even see your wall because it's just black. It's just covered in flies. There's a plague where the livestock and people are covered in boils. There's a plague where there's giant storms of hail. There's a plague where God takes away light in Egypt for 3 days. So all of Egypt is just living in darkness like blind people for 3 days. And so every time they're getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually Pharaoh tells Moses, one of these days that Moses comes before him, get out of here, and if I see you again, I'll kill you. Now comes the sad part. Now comes the part where God is going to bring a plague that he really didn't want to do. Has your mom or dad ever told you something like, this punishment hurts me more than it hurts you? God really meant that, and that's what this next plague is. He tells Moses, I am going to kill every firstborn son in Egypt, because that's what it's going to take for them to let you guys go. So night falls, and the angel of death sent by the Lord passes over Egypt, kills every firstborn in every home, leaves the Hebrews alone, of course, because they've painted blood on the top of their doorways. And the Bible tells us there was great weeping and wailing in Egypt that night and in the morning. So this time Pharaoh calls Moses before him, and it turns out even Pharaoh's oldest son has died from this plague. And this time he tells Moses, get out of here. Take all of your people and go. We never want to see you guys again. So all the Egyptians basically drive them out. They give them a whole bunch of gold and like precious stuff to take with them, because they're just saying, whatever you need, take it and go. And so the Israelites, they're finally free, and that's a beautiful thing. They are on a journey now. They're following God. God is in this giant pillar of cloud, just leading them to the promised land. He's leading them the far way because he's got a lot to teach them, but they're following God now. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, a few days have passed. Pharaohs look around like, we're really behind schedule with all of our farming this week. Oh yeah, that's because we let all of our slaves go. And so he's like, oh shoot, we can't really run this country by ourselves. He takes the Egyptian army, all these chariots and horses and weapons, and they take off after the Israelites, and they'll catch them because they have like better chariots and stuff. And so we go back to the Israelites. They are coming up on the Red Sea, and they're gonna have to journey all the way around it. That can take a long time. They look behind themselves. In the distance, they can see the Pharaoh and his army approaching. And now God performs one of the coolest miracles in all the Bible. He splits the Red Sea so that there's dry land in between it, and the sea is split so that the sea is like walls on each side of them. It would have looked like you're walking through an aquarium maybe, but without the glass. And so the Israelites start walking through the Red Sea, through this dry part, and the Egyptians and the Pharaoh, they're close on their tail. They also go between the seas. When the Israelites make it to the other side, when the last Israelite makes it to the other side, God closes the Red Sea down upon the Egyptian army and the Pharaoh. And the Bible tells every single one of those soldiers in the Egyptian army, including Pharaoh, died. It's kind of a somber story. There's so much death, but it's also that's the cost of freedom. Sometimes this is a nation that was enslaving the Israelites, and so this is what God had to do because they were so stubborn. This is what God had to do so that they would let his people go, and that's how much he loves them, and that's how much he loves us since we're his people now, those of us who've accepted Jesus. Well, thank you for watching. Tune in next week for the next Bible Stories with Ben. Hopefully going to be a little cheerier. Peace.